Hi, Ricardo. How are you?
Uh, Good new.
Good,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great having you. I'm excited to see everything that you're going to tell us today.
Thank you.
So, before we dive deep into your story, let's start with some icebreakers. First of all, so people can place you in the world map, where are you currently located?
I am home, which is Rio, Brazil. I just came back home from a almost 2 month trip in Europe. I came back last week, about 5, 6 days ago, and feels good to be home. It's winter in Rio, so it's lovely here. The weather is just perfect. It's a
What
great
does
time
that
to.
mean in degrees Celsius so people can have an
Um,
idea?
eight- 18 at night to 26 during the day.
That's
Um,
perfect.
that's a very good temperature for Rio. Normally it's like 26 during the day and 30 something, 26 at night and 32 during the day. So it's actually a very good temperature. Like people are going out with like jackets and gloves and everything because it's 18 degrees. So
And here in Switzerland, like if it's 18 degrees, it's like, oh my God, it's so warm. Like it's such a different
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. It's funny actually because well, I was in Zurich. It's where my flight came from when I was in Europe, and it was like the same. It was like 16, 17, 18 degrees at night, and I was just like with shirts, like normal shirt and shorts and easy. And when I got here, like yesterday, I went out at night and it was 18. I was freezing. Like I don't know. It's just I think it's just a perception, but it's crazy.
Yeah, because you have to think like people from Zurich, they're coming from winter. So they coming from like 0 degrees. So 18 is super warm if you're coming from 0 degrees.
Yeah, true.
And in Rio, like you're coming from 36 and then suddenly it's 18. So it's
Yeah, of course.
like where you're coming from, I guess.
True. Yeah, different perspectives. Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, cool. So what is your favorite morning routine?
Morning routine. Wake up, have a good stretch, not very long, like 10 minutes, like 10-minute yoga session. It's enough for me just to get the body warmed up. Big breakfast. I love breakfast. And then I start with like boring things that I have to do on my list, like just like getting stuff done. Not like the creative stuff. The creative stuff I like to do like more at night normally. In the morning, I just like to get things done. So emails, or if I have to, I don't know, fix something in my car or go to somewhere in the street and get something done. Yeah, that's normally what I do in the mornings, like just like try to get all of this done and then lunch, and then I start like working properly on like editing, or if I need to do something more creative, like planning a trip or trying to come up with some projects or have a few meetings. I like to do that in the afternoon or at night. So the morning for me it's just about getting things done basically.
Mm. Makes sense because once you get that done, then you can actually free your mind to the things that you
Yeah,
actually like doing. So makes sense.
yeah, it's hard to for me it's really hard to get like creative, like edit stuff and try to think like outside of the box when you have a bunch of other things to do.
Mhm.
um it's just very hard for me to focus on one thing when I have many things going around. So that's how it works for me. Yeah.
So you mentioned you love breakfast. What will one always find in your fridge? Eggs or
yeah. I'm a simple guy actually. Well, fruits. I love fruits, especially being home. All kind of fruits. Granola, honey, yogurt. That's like a classic. And then egg and bread, basically. Nothing like really fancy, and coffee, of course. Yeah, that's it. That's a simple and efficient breakfast for me.
that's what is always gonna be in your fridge. Every time you wake up, there's gonna be all of that in there.
Well, I hope so. Sometimes I miss some stuff, but yeah.
Okay.
Um, when I'm home, it's easier. I still live with my parents in Rio, it's very convenient for me because I'm always traveling around, and so the last 6 months of the year, from June to December, I don't live in Rio. Basically, I moved to the northeast of Brazil. So for me to rent an apartment, it doesn't really make sense because the first half of the year, I'm in Rio, but I'm always traveling. So when I come back home, it's really nice to spend some time with my parents. They're really chill. And the last 6 months, like I rent a place, well, by myself, but in another state. So it doesn't make sense for me to have a place in Rio yet. So it's very nice just to be back home with them. I also try to spend most time I can with them as well. I haven't been very present the last few years, so it's always good to be around family. Yeah.
Yeah. So it means that six months of the year, your fridge is already completed by someone else. Your mom has it
Exactly.
full on when you arrive at home. And the
Exactly.
other 6 months, you have to see if you find some food to put in there or not.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly. Exactly.
Pretty good.
Yeah. It normally
Um,
works out. Normally works out. Yeah.
well, at least 6 months of the year, you're well fed, and then the other
Yeah.
6 months, you compensate for the first 6 months, I guess. Sounds pretty
Exactly.
handy.
Yeah.
Okay, the last icebreaker. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh. I actually thought about this question a couple of times, and
Did it change?
I can't make up my mind between communicating with all humans, like speaking all of the languages, or communicating with all animals, like speaking to every kind of animal in the world. Um, I literally can't choose between both, but it would be definitely communicating,
With
a
everything.
communication skill for sure. With humans would be amazing, like for traveling, for connecting deeper with people. Like when you don't know their language, it's really hard to properly connect. Especially with traveling, it's super hard. But with animals, would be just like wow, right?
Yeah, for
Even
sure.
though
Really
I'm
cool.
not sure if they probably have like some cool stories to tell, and I don't know, just to hear about their point of view of the world, that would be incredible. Even though I'm not sure if they would say much, um, they
Well,
probably
yeah,
would.
it's hard to, yeah, I'm sure they would. I mean, it's hard to know what they think or how they communicate. So,
Exactly.
but that, yeah, that's definitely really cool. So, just being able to talk with every being in the world, pretty much.
Yeah, if I could choose that, that
Pretty
would be cool.
powerful.
Yeah,
Very powerful.
very
Cool.
powerful.
So you you gave like some hints about who you are, about your lifestyle and things like that. But let's say, and I know a little bit more about you than the people that are listening. Let's say I'm meeting you for the first time. How would you describe yourself? Like kind of an elevator pitch.
Yeah. Um, well, I am born and raised in Rio. I'm 28 now, and I've been doing full-time photography work for about 5 years, 5 years. I consider myself an explorer and enthusiast for knowing other cultures, having new experiences, and trying to basically explore as much as I can. I love the outdoors. I don't like being like cities, like chaotic stuff, traffic, this kind of stuff. Just I don't like it anymore. And I feel like I've been getting used to this lifestyle of being a little bit out of the radar and out in nature, but not like wild. Like I don't go camping for like 2 months. Not like that kind of explorer, but just being around nature with some kind of comfort. I think it's my happy place. I'm not that guy that likes like go hitchhiking with a huge backpack and see where the road leads. Like especially because doing photography, you need some kind of comfort and some kind of infrastructure to get the best shot possible. So um, like you need to be close to the sunrise spot, to the sunset spot. So you need to rent a car, you need to have a hotel, you need to have some downtime to edit. So I just cannot do this like crazy stuff anymore where I go without sleep for like 10 days. Like I need my internet, I need my phone to work, I need my camera, I need batteries and everything. So it's kind of a mix between like how do you say, like a crazy explorer, but with some kind of comfort. I think I'm that kind of guy. Um, Outside of the photography world, to be honest, I don't see myself without photography nowadays. It's my passion, and it's also my job. So if I wasn't doing photography, I have no idea what I'll be doing right now. Um, I also have, I like to say, an alter ego, which is my kite surfing like character. 6 months out of the year, I just move to the northeast of Brazil. It's where I kite surf. I started kite surfing in during COVID. My parents have a house by the beach in Búzios, which is like 3 hours from you, and it's a very good kite surfing spot. And I've always wanted to try, but I didn't have time. Like a few years back, I was like before COVID, I was traveling basically full time, and it was I never had the chance to do like a full month of lessons, and you kind of need that consistency to learn the sport. And during COVID, well, we were all basically stuck at home, and I had like this beautiful beach just in front of me. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn kite surfing, and it honestly feels like the same passion I had for photography when I started. Like it's very addictive, and it's something that I love. I love the lifestyle. I love being around the water, the ocean, the sun, the wind. So my life, it's kind of like divided now between photography and kite surfing. Kite surfing is more than a hobby than a job, even though I get some jobs with kite surfing as well. But of course, my main life, it's around photography nowadays.
Right. That's a long elevator speech, but thank you for going into detail.
Sorry.
I think someone that would need like you have to get like the elevator pitch a bit improved, but it was really good. Thank you for giving us a lot of insight into um, your
We're not in
life.
elevator, so we have time.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's amazing. I mean, it's amazing that you have these two personalities and that you can play around with both of them. Also, they're very complementary, I guess, right? Because one of them dedicates a lot of your time also in front of the computer and traveling and logistics, and the other one is more like living the moment and sports and kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
being there present. So it's nice to have that
Yeah,
counterbalance, I guess.
yeah, it's a bit of an escape as well.
Mm.
I feel like every job, there comes a point when you're just like tired of doing that job, like that same task like over and over. So when I photograph too much, like especially like now, for example, like I don't want to touch my camera for like a couple weeks because I've been shooting for 2 months straight, and I'm probably just gonna pick up my camera when I go, like I don't know, in like 2 weeks or something, when I go northeast and have some kind of job there. So it is an escape, and I feel like every kind of job, if you can, it's good to have a break from time to time. When you do photography, you don't have like weekends, you don't have work time, so just working all the time in front of the computer or in the camera, and like just or shooting or editing, basically you're just like all the time working. So if I can like have a break and just like spend a week kite surfing without worrying about too much camera or editing or clients or emails, it's so nice for me just to get my head clear a bit. So it's a very good escape for me as well.
I think, I mean, now you entered already in a few of the dark sides of photography, like the not so exciting stuff, I guess. But
Yeah,
for people looking from the outside, like you let's say your Instagram or like your website or just not knowing the little details of your work, um, you travel a lot, like you've been to a lot of countries, you've visited a lot of the different cultures. Your work has been featured in National Geographic. You've been working with a lot of international brands, well-known brands. So for a lot of people, like looking from outside is like it could be a job that many dream of, just traveling and working with photography and creating amazing images. Can you give us a little bit of a background story of how you even got to that? Because it's not like one day to the other, like, well, it is maybe, but there is a process until you get to that point of being where you
Yeah,
are
for
now,
sure,
I guess.
for sure. Oh, it is a dream job. I'm super happy with what I do, but especially I think nowadays in social media we only share the good stuff about it. Like in general, it doesn't need to be about your job, also about your life, your relationships, of your routine. We only share the good stuff, right? We normally don't share the bad stuff. So people looking from the outside think like, oh man, this guy is living the dream, just traveling and meeting cool people and being to nice spots. But they don't see like all the hard work that it's like behind the screen, like spend more time, way more time in the laptop than out there taking photos, you know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I can't really complain. And it's funny because for I can never photography was never something that I wanted to work with. Of course, there was a point where it's like, okay, maybe this can work. Um, but it all started, well, it started with like some film cameras back in 2011, 12, 13. There was I had a phase of like being like rock and roll with like indie music and this kind of stuff. So I picked up some like old vintage cameras. I had like a huge hair. Um, and I picked up like some old cameras just for the, like just for the lifestyle and not for the photography itself, but it was just fun, like listening to this kind of indie bands and like having like these old cameras. It just all fitted the style. And well, I just like taking photos, and then my trips started. Like my first like real backpacking trip was in 2015. I
How
went to
old
South
were you then? Sorry, how
uh
old were you?
20 20
20.
2015. I was 20, yeah.
So like right after high school or
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
I went to South America, well, for a month with two of my friends. We did like the classic Machu Picchu, Atacama, Bolivia trip, and it was a trip that had like an iPhone 5, and that was the first trip that I like started sharing my photos. Um, and on Facebook, I didn't. Well, I had Instagram at the time, but it was just like useless. We used more Facebook at the time, and then some friends of mine are like, yeah, these are very nice photos, and family as well. And I tried to do like a daily upload, like day one this place and day two that place. And it was basically where it all started. Like people are like, oh man, these photos are nice. And then I remember at the end of the trip was like day 30, and everyone was commenting, yeah, man, these photos are really cool. I want to visit this place. Okay, let's see where this goes. And then 2016, I did another backpacking trip in Southeast Asia, and I decided to get my first like proper camera. It was a very small Fuji XT10. I had no idea of like how they work, the lenses, aperture, like any of that stuff. I just bought that camera because it looked like really cool. It reminded me of like my film cameras. It's like a vintage camera. And yeah, so I posted on Instagram, and then from 2016 to 2018, basically, I was in university doing marketing, well, business, but focused on marketing and also working. So I didn't have a lot of time to travel, but I could always find 2 weeks or 3 weeks to travel around, and I did some good traveling in those years. And then when I graduated, that was the end of 2017. I was like, I'm not super happy with my job right now. I have saved some money. Let's see where this goes. So I bought a one-way ticket to Asia, 2018. Spent 6 months in Asia, and that was the first trip that was like, maybe I want to work with photography and see if it works. So that was a trip where I really invested my time and money in like creating a nice portfolio, like going to nice hotels, shooting the hotels, shooting some work for like travel agencies for free. And then ever since I came back from that trip, I basically never stopped taking photos. And yeah, it became work after that trip, which was, at first it wasn't my real intention, but as the trip went on, it just happened. Like, it was honestly never my idea, but it just happened. And then I think it's a gradual evolution. Nothing happens from night to day, that's for sure. You never stop learning. You're always connecting with new people that are teaching you new stuff, always traveling to new places, getting new perspective, learning new techniques. So it's a long process to get where I am right now. And there's still a long process to go, of course, but yeah, I'm very happy how it turned out. It's been slowly, but it's been a nice process.
Nice. And all of these trips that you have done, like, have you gone alone or have you gone with friends? Like, how? I mean, the
I
first
used
one you mentioned, but like the Asia
Yeah,
trip, for example, or
I used to travel alone a lot, like just backpacking with like a big backpack in the back and the camera bag in the front. But I feel like these days are kind of over now. I realized that traveling with people is way more. Well, I had a lot of fun back then, but when it comes to photography, to be surrounded with people that do photography as well is just another level. Um, I mean, it needs to be the right person, right? So I would never go to like a crazy beautiful location with a friend that doesn't photograph. For me, that wouldn't work. Um, so if I can find the right person, which nowadays with all like social media and this stuff, it's super easy to just to find people to travel with. I'd rather travel with other photographers and videographers or whatever, for sure.
nice. So you find them pretty much online, like you make friends online and then you go and meet them.
Yeah. Sounds dangerous. Sketchy, but yeah, it's funny. Before COVID, I was saying I was travel a lot alone. Like, if I didn't have company, I would just go. I did a lot of trips. Okay, I want to go to Central America in 2 months. Like, I contact a few friends. No, I can't. I don't have the money. Like, I would just go and figure out. But but especially after COVID, well, it was a time of like isolation for everyone, and I got close to a lot of people on Instagram, like photographers. That, funnily enough, these people were like more friends to me than friends that I had for 10 years in high school, right? And
Well,
then
yeah, they know the new version of you, like that your
yeah,
other friends probably don't know
yeah,
that well. So,
we share the same interests, and it's crazy. Like, just traveling, when you find people that do the same thing as you, it's just so easy like to engage in a nice conversation. Just like if you go to a bar and meet like another photographer that you met on Instagram, like, hey, I'm in Rio right now, let's meet, like, let's have an acai. And you have like a 2 3 hour conversation about like all the random stuff and people that you've been studying and like hanging out for 10 years, you can't even have like a 10-minute conversation. So that's how I feel nowadays. From one perspective, it's kind of sad, but it's true. Like, I feel way more connected with people that I meet online, not necessarily. Um, well, most of them are photographers, of course, but I feel the connection it's way bigger with these people than people that I have known from a while. And that's what I've been focusing on traveling right now, is just getting this kind of people to come along and just like planning trips. And it's honestly the best feeling in the world. Like, you know the person for like 3 4 years on Instagram, and then like, hey, let's go to Namibia, and then you've never seen that person in your life, and you get to Namibia, spend 2 weeks with them, and it's the most amazing trip. um yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
is there like a Tinder for photographers, or like not in the sense of dating, but in the sense of like meeting? That would be something.
That would be
If you're
cool
somewhere,
actually.
yeah, like if you're somewhere and you're like, okay, I don't know, you just kind of match with people to do exactly that what you said, right? To kind of actually meet the people then personally, but not like Tinder. People think already about dating, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean
yeah.
like on a friend's level as well.
That's an amazing idea actually. Well, for me, I just use Instagram. I feel like as you kind of create a good following base, um, it's easy. Like, hey, I'm traveling to whatever in a couple weeks. Is there anyone around? There's probably someone that's gonna be there or know someone that's there. I feel like when you're smaller on Instagram, you don't have that big of an audience. It's harder when you get to a certain point. Like you have people from all over the world following you. So if you go to Asia, if you go to Europe, if you go to Africa, probably there will be someone that's gonna be up for a coffee or for going out and shooting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And what, like in this whole process of getting to where you're now, like you mentioned a few things already, but what would you say were the biggest challenges you have faced or that you keep facing in this process?
Mm. I think all of the work you do as a freelancer doesn't need to be like photography. If you're a freelance, you don't have a certainty of basically anything. Like you don't know next month I could make X or I can make 10X. I have no idea what's gonna happen. So if you don't chase like the work, it's probably not gonna come to you. Like you always need to be in a hunt of something new to do. If you just sit around and wait, it's gonna be really hard. Well, unless you have like a huge name or everything and brands come to you. But I feel like the hardest thing about being a freelance photographer or creative in general is that you need to be pushing like all the time. You just can't like stop and wait, like do the 9 to 5 job, and in the end of the month you're gonna have a salary. Like if you don't push to find work, it's gonna be really hard to like get a good income. So I think that's the hardest part for all the freelancers for sure. It's just very like uncertain, and you can't just like rely on like having a good portfolio, having good connections. You really need to put your name out there and stand out somehow, because it's there's a lot of competition as well. So yeah, it's just this uncertainty. I think that's the hardest part as a freelancer for sure.
And I mean, you mentioned now like the struggles, and also before when you were talking about, writing emails or doing a lot of stuff in front of the computer that many people don't see, right? Like a lot of people just see the pictures and they're like, oh my God, you have a talent, so amazing, beautiful pictures. But they only see the final product. They don't see everything that is behind that final product. Um, can you go a little bit deeper in the sense of like you said already as well, like you have to hunt jobs, like you have to go and write proposals and reach out to people. Um, anyway, like all of or the editing part, kind of if someone doesn't know, like I know everything that you're saying, but if someone doesn't know the actual work that a photographer goes through. So in your case, especially travel photography, where you have to write proposals for brands, for tourist
Hmm.
agencies, and that. How do you go about it? Like, what is your, let's say, method? Like, from you don't have any jobs right now until delivering your picture. Like, can you go a little bit in that process so people can understand?
Yeah. Um, yeah, the picture is just a final product. There's a lot that goes like behind the last picture, like the one that we post on Instagram. Let's say that's the final product. There's so much that goes that happens before that picture. It's a long process.
You don't have to go super into detail, but just like to
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
general idea so people can
The
understand
way,
a bit
yeah,
better.
the way I like to work is basically um I try to think of a trip or an expedition that I want to do, or like a project could be. And let's say, I mean, I think it's easier if we just have like a certain trip. Like, let's say I want to go to Norway is on the top of my list. Okay. Then I really want to go to Norway in 3 months. So I'm going to like spend all of my time from now until the day I go on the trip, thinking of how I can make money if I go to Norway, right? So for me, I'm mostly like an outdoor and lifestyle photography. Is that how I would like label myself? So I'll start thinking of brands which share the same values as me as well. Like I don't want to work with a brand that doesn't really communicate with me or with my audience. It doesn't really make sense to me. So starting from now, I would think of a range of brands, from clothing to, can be like food, can be tourist agencies, can be airline companies, can be accessories, can be camera gear. I mean, you can get really creative with all the brands you work, like magazines of like an agency that does like some kind of licensing, and understanding who would be willing to pay me for some kind of product that I can do on that trip. So I basically draw an outline of like how the trip would be. Like, okay, I'm gonna be 15 days in Norway, and that's a really hard part of planning as well. Like seeing where you want to go and what these places can deliver in terms of photography. Like I'm not going to a place where I know that I won't be doing very nice photos, right? I'm not gonna plan a trip to, I don't know, let's say, like I'm not gonna plan a trip to Paris or to London if my job is like outdoors, right? So I'm gonna pick a place that it's interesting to photograph. And Norway, I mean, Norway is amazing, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff that have been done in Norway already. So let's say I wanna go different. I wanna go to Greenland, right? Which is, wow, a crazy destination, like really outside of the box. Um, that I think that have more value to brands than going to Norway or to, let's say, even like Patagonia. Patagonia is amazing, but like it's been explored for like years and years and years, and everyone knows Patagonia, those peaks. I mean, it's incredible. I love that place.
And
Um,
some brands maybe even want that, no? Like
yeah,
exactly because it has been explored that much that
yeah,
people like, oh, they know it, like it's kind of a
yeah. It's
safe zone
true.
in a way. Yeah.
True. Yeah. So yeah, that's the tricky part, to find brands that are aligned with your proposal. It could be going to Patagonia or going to Greenland. Probably the brand that wants to go to Patagonia doesn't want to go to Greenland, and vice versa as well. Or there's a brand that wants to go to, well, whatever. I think that's the key secret that comes like all the planning and all the pre-production, is to definitely find that brand that wants to be in your project and not the other way around. Um, what we see a lot these days, like in the outdoor and photography world, is people doing like a brand reaches out to them and they have like this project that it's not like what they want to do, but they do for the money. And that's something that I've been really trying to incorporate more in my workflow, is just like, I want to do my project and I want to find a brand that is aligned with that project instead of the other way around. And I think that's the direction I want to go. I want to work like on longer projects, not like waking up at sunrise, shooting sunrise, getting a banger, posting the banger, and it's done.
Mm.
I feel like that's a little bit of that stayed in the past for me, just a little bit. And now I want to like focus on like, oh, let's spend a week in that place, let's create like a nice story, let's do a video, let's do whatever. Just like having more storytelling than just like getting to a place, shooting a banger, and going home.
Mm.
So yeah, that's basically the pre-production that I do.
So
Planning
you
a
kind
lot.
of choose the place and then you choose the brands and then you see if it combines. And if you, let's say you really want to go to a place, but you cannot sell your trip, are you going to go anyway or not?
It depends on the cost of the trip, for sure. Well, as I mentioned before, Greenland, for example, Greenland is a destination that I have on my bucket list for like 3 or 4 years, but a trip to Greenland would cost like $10,000 or something. So it's a really hard trip to do, and it's a trip that I kind of need to have a brand aligned. Otherwise, it's too big of investment that I'm not sure that I can get this investment back like post trip, which could be like selling prints or like licensing images, or selling to magazines. Like I don't know if I can make $10,000 of that material that I create in Greenland, or even like selling a photo expedition in the future. That could be as well. But there are trips that I really want to do. Like this trip I did to Finland, I didn't have any brand behind. I just paid the trip for myself, and it was the most amazing experience, like photographing bears. Um, it was a hard trip to sell for companies because I was basically like in a hut for 5 days without like getting out. So I didn't
You
have.
couldn't put something on the bear or something like that.
It was, yeah, it was a hard trip to sell. I came up with some ideas, like tried selling to. I did have a good contact with Sigma, the lens brand, but I didn't have the budget at the time. Um, but yeah, if a trip, if it's something that I want to do, and if it's not gonna like break the bank, I'm gonna do for sure, and I'm gonna use that trip as portfolio, or I'm gonna try to sell that content later. And
To
it's
brands as
basically
well, or to prints? Like if you say you're going to sell the pictures later.
well,
Like,
mostly prints or licensing or magazines, or potentially like selling for a photo expedition in the future. That's something that I want to do with the bears as well. Maybe next year, like taking a group to photograph the bears. So if I manage to bring a group next year to Finland, the first trip is going to be paid off. So it's a win-win situation, right? Um, well, the same thing happened in Patagonia, for example. Like first 2 times I just did by myself, and then I had very good content, like very good portfolio to sell, like a photography workshop, to take some brands as well to work with. So my first basically 2 trips were paid off with the workshop that I did, and then the workshops that I'm gonna do in the future. So every trip that we do when we work with photography needs to be like you don't think of like an expense. So I'm gonna go to this trip and spend this much money. Like every trip that I do, I consider as an investment in myself, in my portfolio. So shooting the bears, for example, it's a very nice addition to my wildlife portfolio, which it's something that I really enjoy doing. The Namibia trip as well. I mean, we had a few sponsors, but in the end, it wasn't a trip that I made that much of money. But I had the content to probably host a Namibia workshop in the future, have a very nice wildlife photography material. So it's all an investment. And if you do it well, if you take everything as like work, if you do your best on all the trips, I think the money will come back at some point. So
so you
yeah,
keep kind of like what you said before as well, of you don't know how much you're going to make the next month. So from what you're saying as well, you have different income streams as well that you can then invest, and then you receive it back later to then invest
yeah.
it again. So it's kind of like, but you need different income streams, I guess, to keep going.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, mixing these trips with commercial work is good as well. Um, but yeah, it's very uncertain, like when you're gonna get money, if you're gonna get the money, if it's gonna be before the trip, if it's gonna be during the trip, it's gonna be after the trip. Um, and I'm really happy with that, to be honest. It's an amazing lifestyle, just like traveling and meeting people and photographing. I love it. Like for me, it's never been about the money. Like, oh, I want to make $100,000. I mean, if the trip pays off, and if I'm happy, like this is enough for me, right? At least for now. That's where I am with my life in the moment. Not thinking too much about the future. like in a couple years in advance. Now, for me, it's just about like living the moment and figuring out the next trips. And yeah, I'm happy with that. And with the workshops that we're gonna do in the future, I got some good commercial works coming as well. So it's fun.
Do you want to give a little bit of insight of what are the future projects that you have?
Yeah, it's not 100% confirmed yet, but I think in July actually I'm going to Namibia again with an airline company.
Nice.
Um, yeah,
Did
fun
you
job.
pitch them or did someone
They
connect
reached out
you?
to us. They reached
Oh,
out to
nice.
us. Yeah. So the same group that I went to Namibia last year, um, this airline company contact us like, hey, we really like the content you did in Namibia. Do you want to go again and shoot for us? We're like, yes, we want. So, yeah, that's another example of investment that we did that it's paying off right now. Um, so that's
Visibility as well, right?
yeah,
Marketing.
yeah, of course. That's yeah, that's gonna be July. Hopefully, we're gonna hear from them this next week. Then I have 2 weeks of workshop in Lençóis in Brazil. Two groups that are sold out, which is amazing. Then in August, I'm going to Sweden with an outdoor clothing brand called Fjäll Raven. You probably know them.
Yeah, of course. Cool.
Yeah, they invited me to be in the Brazilian team, so
Nice.
that's August, and that's what I have for now. These two big jobs and two photography expeditions, and then in the end of the year, probably a few more. Um, so yeah, exciting. Busy. July and August are gonna be busy. Uh, then I hope for maybe September, October. I wanna be home, kite surfing because
Home.
home. Yeah,
Home. Where's
home.
home?
My second home, kite surfing. Um, I love spending time there. I just don't want to travel. I mean, if a job and opportunity comes up, I'll go. But I'm not gonna pitch anything for September and October. I just want to be there, um, relaxing a bit, and probably like getting some edits done as well. And probably November and December, traveling again. So hopefully September and October are gonna be like a little bit more chill, doing some kite trips, and yeah, that's what I have for now.
Nice. So is that like a pattern? Like every 2 months, you kind of go traveling for 1, 2 months, and then you relax for 1, 2 months, and then you travel for
Yeah,
1, 2 months. Is that like?
yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, from January to June, it's more open. Like whatever comes, I'll take it. But from July to December, I'm a little bit more picky, I think, when it comes to projects. I also have a lot of work there, if I want, with kite surfing, not only like kite trips, but commercial stuff as well, with hotel and like kite trips. So it's something that it's somewhere I really want to be, instead of just like traveling like outside of Brazil. So it's good. It's a good balance.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I guess in the first 6 months, I mean, you're in Rio and you said as yourself, like you don't like that much to be in cities and you're living with your
Yeah,
parents. So whatever opportunity you get to get out, like you just get out, right?
exactly. That's when I push the most. When I'm in Rio, I'm like, okay, where can I go in 2 weeks? Let's see, where can I go? Like, how can I go? Who's gonna come?
Take me
That's
out of here.
yeah, that's the feeling for sure.
Cool. Okay, we're slowly reaching to the end. If you, well, unless you want to share something else, something that you think, well, there is one thing that I'm going to ask you that I think we can get into another conversation. If you could give one advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oof. Um,
I mean, you can choose who that person is, if it's like a younger self from a year ago, or if it's like
10 years ago, yeah.
baby Ricardo or whoever it is.
um, I don't consider it like it's not a regret, that's not the right word, but I wish I had um, surrounded myself with creative people a bit earlier in my life. 2018, 2019 were very, even though I like I traveled, I basically traveled full time. Like I came to Rio, spent 10 days and travel for 2 months, and 10 days in 2 months. I kind of wish I had surrounded myself with more like creative people in those years. It were there were was years that I traveled mostly alone. Um, I was never alone, like literally alone. I was always with people, but it was people like I met in hostels and like just like regular people, like not photography wise. And
Not the
I
same
felt like,
tribe.
yeah, not the same tribe. Um, and as I told you before, like after COVID, I really tried to connecting with people like photographers and video makers, and I felt like my job got so much better. Like my work itself, like the quality of the images and the creativity, and the trips itself, they got way more fun in general when you travel with people that share the same passion as you. So my well, it's not an advice for who's starting. I don't know if that's the point of this conversation, but if you can travel with people that share the same interests as you, could be biking, could be kite surfing, could be photography, could be, I don't know, if you love eating out at a restaurant and trying different meals, like try to find that person that shares the same interest in, and I'm sure your trip is going to be 10 times better than going by yourself. I think traveling alone is super important as well for like self development and getting to know yourself and being comfortable on your own. It's also super important. It's something that I've developed over these years. That if I have to go alone, I'll go. That's no problem. But it's there's this phrase like happiness is only real when it's shared, right? It's like a very cliche, but it's true in the end.
Yeah, there's
Um,
also this other phrase. What is it? Like what is it called? Like going alone, you can only go so far, but going together, you can go much
yeah,
farther. I don't remember exactly the
yeah,
words, but something like that.
yeah.
I
If
think
you, if
that
you wanna
is
go fast, if you wanna go
yeah,
fast, you don't.
go alone.
If you wanna go far, you go, yeah, with company or whatever. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's true. It's true. Um,
Then how
absolutely.
did you, I mean, you mentioned the social media part, so Instagram mainly, or like how have you been connecting to your tribe? Because I think, I mean, I see that for myself, but also with other people. As I mean, what you were saying before, for example, you had your group of friends, and nowadays you don't relate to them as much as you relate to your new
Yeah.
group of friends because you decided to have a different lifestyle. You decided to live in a different way than they probably decided to. So they might be going a more conventional path, or they just kind of different interests or whatever. Um, so you kind of change bubbles, right? You change
Yeah.
tribes.
Yeah.
And I know that is a very difficult transition to do because you're kind of, when you're in between, like you're not part of that, but you're not part of the other one either. So you're kind of somewhere in between. And I know a lot of people don't get out of their bubbles exactly because of that, because there's a lot of fear involved, because all of your friends do something else and you do something different. And you're kind of like the um, kind of the
And out.
outlander from your own tribe in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And how do you get to know your people? Like, how do, in your case, you mentioned, I guess, Instagram, but are there other ways that you would recommend people to do, or how would people get out of their bubbles and get to know other
Yeah.
people that do the same thing?
I think it's basically about just getting out of your comfort zone. It's really cliche, but like if you don't take that step, you're never going out of your own bubble. Like if you're staying stuck in the same routine, that's gonna be your life, right? For photography, specifically speaking, Instagram for me is it's the way to connect with other people. Um, I've been um, trying to be more active on TikTok as well recently. And I have a good amount of followers there as well, but the connection is just not the same as Instagram. And I feel like that on Facebook as well. Facebook, it's not. I feel like Facebook, it's a it's a social network to connect with people that you already know, like your friends and your family, like from that person that you studied 15 years ago. You still have that person on Facebook, right? You see whatever about them, their lives. For me, Instagram, it's connecting with like a new audience, and it's super easy to find people that share the same interests as you. Just um, I feel like if you really work with social media, you need to take social media as your not like real life, of course, but you have to be nice, you have to engage, you have to um, comment on people's photo, like, yeah, man, I love this. Or like, what's your process? And then you just send a DM like, hey, I love this photo. Where was it taken? Um, just like trying to interact more on Instagram, because people, they're super friendly. That's at least in this world of photography, people are super friendly. And I've never had like a bad experience where I reach out to someone, they're like, no, I'm not going to share this with you, this is my photo, this is not, I don't want to share this. People are super friendly. And like, let's say I'm going to Bali next week, like as you going, like probably 3 4 times a day I see people posting like somewhere in Bali, right? And then you just reach out like, hey, I'm gonna be in Bali in 2 weeks, you're still gonna be around. Let's grab a beer, let's shoot something, and the connections that you made from this like small conversation and these small moments are amazing. And I think it's just like, yeah, taking that step. And if someone listening to this that it's not like completely related to photography, just like go to hostels and meet people and like join like a bike group as you do, and like go for a pub crawl, whatever, like a river cruise, like just yeah, just do something that it's gonna connect with people. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's the best way to experience the world in general with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think once you also start doing that, what you like, you automatically start getting to know people that have the same interests, right? Like,
Yeah.
as you said, like if you go to, I don't even know if they still do that, but a few years ago, there's also like the meetups that you could also go, like you could just like choose a
Yeah.
certain topic or something. I don't know if they still use it a lot. Like I used for a while, but I haven't anymore. But I think that's also like you just look at a topic that interests you and then you go to some to a place where there's more people that are interested in that topic as well, and then you automatically get to know people, right?
Yeah, it's
So
like a magnet. You attract not only the people but the things that you want to attract. If let's say if I well I that's what I do. I post a lot of landscape photos. So normally my audience is going to be people that like landscapes and travel as well. So it's it's in the end it's easy. Like you attract you what's another phrase? You well, when you plant something that you're gonna like, I don't know, você colhe o que você planta, you know?
uh what goes around comes back around, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
could
could be
be.
a I mean, it's not the literal
Yeah,
translation, but what do you water, you harvest? Is it
yeah,
something like that? So,
yeah, could be.
anyway, yeah, something like that. Whatever the seeds that you plant, you're gonna harvest at some point.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so that will work as well. Like if you only start posting jobs that you do with cars, for example, at some point the car brand is gonna reach out to you, right? If you only post there are a few people like they're known for like exploring the Arctic regions on Instagram. Like if you only post about the Arctic, like if you only go to Iceland or Greenland or Norway, like that's gonna be you. Like you're gonna attract people that are interested in those countries and brands as well. So that also works with everything in life. Whatever kind of energy that you bring to the table, you're gonna receive that energy back. So yeah, the universe is gonna retrieve, like it's gonna talk back to you for sure.
Mm. And I think what you mentioned, I mean, Instagram, I mean, you mentioned, for example, that you post only the landscape pictures and very specific minimalistic pictures, but it's not that what you, the only things that you work for, like most of your commercial job, you don't even post, right? So that's
No,
also an interesting thing with Instagram as a tool of promotion and portraying you, right?
yeah. Well, as I said before, in social media, we only share the stuff that we want people to see, basically. And well, my dream clients would be clients like outdoor stuff, like hiking or camping, or maybe something like to do with like long expeditions, could be like in a car or however. So that's what I want to post on my Instagram, like minimal stuff related to this kind of like landscape and scenarios. um I do a lot of fashion as well. I do some product work, but I don't want to post this because even though it's a source of income, right? I have that on my website, but on my Instagram, I just want to post what I want to attract. So if I start posting like product stuff on Instagram, there are probably more product brands reaching out to me, which I mean, it could be nice, but that's not what I want to do like 100% right now. I have that on my portfolio. I pitch to these brands, but I try to keep this kind of jobs like offline. There's also something that as when you work with photography, especially nowadays of social media, it always comes related to like Instagram and like, are you gonna post? Are you gonna share a brand? We're gonna use your personal brand, like my Instagram account, to advertise my brand. And that's something that I don't like to do when the brand is not like really aligned to my values and my audience. So I only share in my Instagram what I feel like sharing, and when it's a job that I don't feel like my audience it's gonna enjoy, or it's something that I don't enjoy particularly, I just don't share it. Just like deliver the content and they post on their website, on their Instagram or whatever, but it doesn't have to be on my socials as well.
Mm, makes sense.
Yeah.
While you're saying, I mean, I'm going to extend a little bit more, but something, a curiosity. Um, your thoughts between commercial work and art.
Mm, that's a good topic. Um, I feel like the dream for every photographer is to be hired for your art. Um, when
What
you
does
have like,
that mean?
well, it's basically when the artists have full creative freedom to create whatever they want. Basically, they don't have any guidelines. Like you do whatever you want. You go to the location you choose the model you want. You edit the way you want. Basically, when you have a blank canvas that you can just photograph whatever you want. That's the main, that's the dream. And that's hard to get, to find a client that truly believes in your potential as a photographer. Normally you do have some guidelines, at least for me. It's I've had a few clients where like they just like, okay, this is the product, do whatever you want. You can do photos, you can do videos, you can edit in black and white, you can do grain, you can do color, whatever. Like this is amazing. But when it comes to commercial work, especially if it's a brand that, like let's say a clothing brand, right? Like if you get a yellow jacket to photograph, the jacket needs to be yellow, right? And you're probably gonna need a close up, a few details, a photo from like a medium range, and a photo from a distance. Even though you can still get creative with that, of course, but you have some rules to follow, right? Um, so I think that the ultimate goal, and that's what I said, the thing about like posting just what I want, it's having the creative freedom to create what I'm happy with. Otherwise, the job that you have that you get is just about like clicking a button, right? If the client says, I want to take a photo with like only you can only use a 50 millimeter lens, and I want this composition, and I want this light. I mean, everyone can do that, right? But when you can have this freedom to create whatever you want, that's where the fun part is. And yeah, I've been lucky to have some jobs like this recently, and it's you just create for yourself and you get money for it, and the brand is happy as well because they trust you as an artist and a photographer. So that's the ideal world, but that's not how it always happens for sure.
But then in that case, you would be doing artistic commercial work or commercial art, or because then you have a fusion of both, right? Like you're actually, or are you selling an artwork?
Ooh, I think it's like commercial work can be art or not. It can be like something like very simple, like not a lot of editing, like perfectly sharp. It doesn't need to be art, right? But art can also be commercial. Um, Not necessarily all commercial can be art, but all art can be commercial as well, depending on the communication of the brand. Um, well, just an example of like this recent trip to that I did in Europe. I had a few clients, and most of them I had creative freedom to do whatever I want. Like I went to Norway with a tourism board, and they didn't have any like specific guidelines of what they wanted. Like they just, of course, they had the locations that I had to go, but I was super free to create whatever I want. But when it comes to edit, as is a commercial work that they're gonna share with partners, with hotels, with like another tourism boards, I couldn't go like crazy in my edits. I had to do like if the house is red, the houses have to be red. If the water is it's blue, it has to be blue. Like I can't just like go out of just go crazy, right? Even though I had creative the freedom to create, I couldn't just go crazy. Then there was like this festival in Saudi Arabia that I shot that I could go crazy because like it was a festival, right? I could do black and white, I could do grain, I can do like slow shutter speed, I could do like some Photoshop in some photos. So there are different clients, they have different communications. So we just kind of have to understand what they want to communicate and how you can fit in that plan basically.
How you could put your own creative style in there,
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can
So
do a lot of stuff, and sometimes you just need to follow some rules, and sometimes you have to follow a lot of rules, which turns out to be a boring job in the end. But when you have some kind of freedom, it's great for sure. And I feel like if a brand is hiring you, it needs to give you some certain freedom. Otherwise, you would just hire someone else, right? Because they like your work in the end. Yeah.
yeah, that's I think also a way of targeting those kind of people, right? Because you want to target someone that gets your service because it's you and not because it's someone else. Because otherwise, you're just going to do a copy paste of whatever anyone else can do, right? And that's where you want to kind of differentiate yourself and position yourself differently in the market, I guess.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. It's just not like clicking a button, you know. If it was just clicking a button, like someone from the company could do, like just get
yeah,
someone, just click the button, you know. If you
yeah,
have already the model, if you have the light, if you have the whatever, the product, everything, like why would you need like a proper photographer with like some kind of different ideas? Like you don't need that. You just need someone to push the button or just take the photo with your phone. Like it's easier,
mhm,
right?
yeah, sure. So you would say that art is only when it's 100% created from your own creativity. I just want to
Um,
make like a conclusion on that topic, but I don't know if we're going.
I think art. I think it's very hard to define art. Like art for me can mean one thing, and for you can mean another thing.
Yeah, that's why
Um,
I'm asking you.
um, that's a that's a very difficult question. I
Do
don't
you want
think
to
it's
skip it?
art.
You want to ask for the for help?
I'm gonna ask for help. Yeah. No, I don't think it necessarily needs to be like 100% your idea to be art. Um, but definitely when you can be yourself, when you can, like when you shoot something with passion and you have the creative freedom to edit or to plan to execute, is definitely easier to create art than when you're given something to photograph, right? When you have a project that you're passionate about, I think that's going to be art in general. um yeah, that was a
Okay,
not
I'll
so
let
good
you
answer,
think.
but
I'll let
yeah,
you think a little bit
I'll think
more
about, yeah.
throughout, and then you can let me know in a few days.
Yeah, art is very subjective, so it's
For sure.
what
No, and I
what
mean, each one has their own definition, I guess, and each one sees it in a different way. That's why I was curious to know how you
yeah,
see it. But
yeah. um yeah, good question. I'm gonna think more about that. um
ponder on that.
yeah, for me, art, I mean, it's, personally speaking, it's something that for me, it's some like, especially thinking nowadays of social media, like when we're like just like endless scrolling to Instagram, and I see a photo that I stop and like look for, like, let's say more than 10 seconds, for me that's art already. Like it's something that stands out, not necessarily on Instagram, but something that stands out from the crowd, for me, could be considered art, even though that's not, like, there's not a proper definition. But
No,
if
but I
someone,
think it's fair enough. Yeah.
yeah, if someone does something like really creative and outside of the box, could be any medium, could be photography, could be video, could be um, a painting, or even like a music that like you listen at the first time, like, wow, like this is amazing, this is art as well. So basically nowadays, with like this huge um, flux of information, this is something that stands out. It's a little bit art already, I think.
Cool. I'll ask you again in a few days.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's a good. I think it's great. I'll also think about all the stuff that you said, but I think they're cool things to think about. Um, just like finalizing, where can people connect with you if they want to talk to you or see your work or
Yeah. Well, mostly Instagram. It's where I'm most present nowadays. I'm always very open to chat with people. Like if people just like starting out, they want some kind of advice or something. Always, like, my WhatsApp number is just like everywhere. Like if you want to just like send me a message, I'll just answer you, like, with an open heart as well. So yeah, Instagram. You can find me
TikTok
on
you mentioned?
TikTok now. Yeah, I've always been very hesitant about TikTok. But it's fun. I'm having a lot of fun and getting a lot of inspiration, especially when it comes to video. Um, the algorithm on TikTok is just crazy good. So a lot of people, and I thought that as well, that TikTok, it's only about like silly dances and this kind of stuff. But when you get TikTok to learn what you like, it is an incredible tool. Um, so most of my video inspirations, that it's something that I'm starting to do more recently, they come from TikTok, and it's been fun. Yeah. So if you wanna connect there as well, I'm Instagram and TikTok now, and of course, if you want to connect deeper, like, just send me a WhatsApp or an email, and I'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all your insights. I'm gonna connect on the show notes all the links to your TikTok, Instagram. Should I add the WhatsApp number as well, or?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, of course.
Okay, cool, perfect,
um,
good, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's been good to chat,
cheers
and hope we can connect again soon in the future.
for sure. Well, I'm definitely gonna be in one of your trips again in the future, let's say. I mean, I still have the Bolivia one in my head. I didn't forget
Yeah,
that one yet.
that's gonna be a fun, very fun one. That's
Yeah.
in April next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Namibia or Bolivia. Hopefully see you in one of those two countries. You can borrow my big lens.
No, thank you. But then you can't take any pictures yourself.
Well,
That would be a
we can
bummer.
we can
No,
figure.
if I go to Namibia, then I need a camera. But I'm gonna start talking to the universe. Let's see what it sends.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks
Good.
for the chat. It's been a pleasure,
Take
and
care. Yeah. And rest well.
see ya.
See ya.